So hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Erica and today I will be doing my makeup inventory, and please excuse my makeup look. I feel like I look like I'm halfway there to being a drag queen. I'm going to try and make this makeup inventory more insightful by comparing my numbers to last year's makeup inventory. I'm not going to be comparing my numbers from this inventory or from this update to September's update because I don't know, I just feel like every December at the end of the year I like to compare overall year numbers. So I'm going to get started with my face primers. I previously had 0. I was watching the video from last year to get all the products because I wanted to see my retention rates for products, and I didn't have any primers previously. I remember saying that I was using sunscreen, which is still true. I do prefer to use sunscreen. I previously had 0 and now I have 1, and I feel like I'm going to run out soon, so soon I'll be 0, but my retention rate is 0% because I previously had 0 and now I have 1, so that is a retention rate of 0. Moving on to eye primers, I previously had 3, I currently have 3, and I do have one of the same eye primers, so I have a retention rate of 33%. I believe it's the NYX glitter primer or glitter glue, I don't quite remember, and I used up 67% of it, so I didn't declutter anything, which you will see. If I don't have a retention rate or a use rate, there will be a declutter rate as well, and this is just for me to kind of see where the makeup goes, because obviously if you don't retain it, where did it go? Did I get rid of it? Did I use it up completely? And it would be good for me to know in the future, like for future shopping habits, like don't buy too much of this one product or like one category, because you know you have a pretty bad record with that, which I can see later on. Moving on to setting sprays, I previously had 3 and I currently have 1 setting spray, which means I have a retention rate of 33%. I used up 1, which is another 33%, and I did declutter 1 because I thought that it would go bad before I would get the chance to use it. Moving on to brow pencils, I previously had 6 and I currently have 6, and I have a retention rate of 17%, which means I used up 83% of my brows, so that would be 5 out of 6. And I definitely did use up more brow pencils than just 5 this year. I'm pretty sure that I used up at least 6 brow pencils this year because I have no brows. I mean, I do have brows, but they're very fine, so it's very hard to see, and so I have to use a lot of brow product. But I'm back up to 6 brow pencils. I'm not too worried because I do go through brow pencils pretty regularly, and the 1 brow pencil that I have left from last year, I'm kind of surprised I still have it. It's almost gone. Like, it's not going to take me that long to finish. I could finish it within a month if I really wanted to, but in next year's Project Pan, I'm going to be focusing on my arch nemesis because I want to see how long that brow pencil lasts. I think for brow pencils, I'm all set. Like, there's nothing I need to change with this category or like my spending habits. I'm pretty sure, well, up to this point, everything has been good. The problem categories are later. Moving on to mascaras, I previously had 2. I currently have 8. And I have a retention rate of 0% because I used them all. I used both of the mascaras that I had last year, and I'm sure I used up more mascaras in between that time. I'm sure I used at least 4 mascaras this year, and looking at this number, I am pretty sure that I need to get rid of my current mascara soon because it's kind of old. 8 is pretty high for mascaras, but I think it's because I like to buy this one brand of mascara that is kind of hard for me to get my hands on this specific mascara, so I don't mind having like a stockpile of that one particular mascara. And I did get one for Christmas, but I'm very, like, my eyes are very picky with mascara, it has to be waterproof, and normally it has to be an Asian brand. Moving on to bronzers, I previously had 2 and I currently have 6. My mini fridge just kicked on. I have a retention rate of 50% and a usage rate of 50%. So I still have one of the bronzers and there's pan in it, but one of the bronzers I did use up completely, which is, I think it was in the Hourglass palette. I can't remember like exactly where every single product went off the top of my head. I'm sure if I sat down and thought about it for an hour, I would be able to tell you everything, but we don't have the time for that. So for bronzers, I definitely did go up this year. Actually, right before, I think in September-ish, for my September makeup inventory, I didn't have that many bronzers, and now I suddenly have quite a few bronzers, and it's because of sales. That's literally it, because there were sales on bronzers that I wanted to try, so that is why I now have so many bronzers, despite not being much of a bronzer person. Like, I feel like sometimes it makes me look really good, especially in the summer, but in the winter months and in the spring months, I don't really like the look of bronzer because I usually go ham with bronzer, and so maybe I like bronzers more now, or I'm just more used to it. I don't know. Moving on to blush, I previously had 11 blushes and I currently have 7 blushes. I have a retention rate of 55% and a declutter rate of 45%. And for the decluttered blushes, I believe one of them was the Franken blush and it looked awful on me, and I was actually debating keeping it to use as an eyeshadow because it was made mostly out of eyeshadows and it looked really nice on me, but then I realized I would never go through it. And if I spent all the time and effort trying to pan that giant blush as an eyeshadow, I would never get around to using my other eyeshadow. So I just decided to declutter it because I had a similar shade in my collection anyway, so I didn't feel the need to keep it. I didn't absolutely love it. And then there was 4 other blushes that I originally had in a face palette, and I told my friend I only really wanted the bronzer, and she told me she wanted the blushes back, so I depotted it for her, and that is how I decluttered. Obviously, I don't remember how I decluttered each and every single item, but I feel like right now I'm doing a pretty good job of remembering. I think 7 blushes is, I think it's a little bit too much. I do have very ambitious panning goals. Not planning, but I guess planning too. I have some very ambitious panning goals with my blush this year. I want to use the one up completely, it already has pan in it, and then I also want to hit pan in another one. No, I wanted to use up 3 blushes completely, so I don't know if I'm going to hit that goal. I definitely need to be better about wearing makeup this year. For some strange reason, I wasn't doing that well with wearing makeup towards the later months of the year, and I don't know why, because normally I'm very good about slapping on makeup. So we'll see. Ideally, I think in my last video I said I wanted to have about 5 blushes. 5 blushes will give you enough of a variety of blushes to be able to choose, so you can have like peach, I was about to say pink, a pink blush, a peach blush, a coral blush, a mauve blush, and like a rosy blush. I think that's enough for me. I am not really interested in more like deep purple or really red or more brown toned blushes. My blush range is basically within the range that my cheeks will naturally flush, so I think 5 is enough. And I do have duplicates in my collection. Like, I actually have 2 blushes called Deep Throat because one of my friends thought it was funny. The blush name was funny, so that's why she bought it for me, and another one knew I wanted that blush, so now I have 2. Those 2 friends don't know each other, so that's how I ended up with 2, and I'm more than happy to have 2 because it is a very beautiful blush. The main problem with the shade Deep Throat is that it's a little bit too light for me from summer onwards, and so it only really works at the beginning of the year, so I need to start working on that as soon as possible. Moving on to highlighters. I previously had 11 highlighters and I currently have 11 highlighters. My retention rate is 27% and I think that's 3 highlighters. And I used up 9%, so I used up 1 highlighter and then I decluttered 64%, so that is the rest of them, which is 7%, not 7%, 7 highlighters. And so that means I bought quite a few this year. I'm a little surprised that I have so many highlighters, but I think it's because I have a highlighter palette that I often forget about, and I did get/buy quite a few highlighters towards the end of the year. I don't really mind. I do love highlighter, especially if it looks natural, and a lot of the highlighters in my collection are natural. Some of them are a bit more on the brighter side, but I can tone them down using certain powders, so I don't mind. I enjoy all the highlighters that I have in my collection. Actually, I enjoy almost everything that I have in my collection. I know there's some things that I should probably get rid of. I think the highlighter number is okay. I'm pretty sure I'm going to use up at least 1 next year, if not 2. So I'm pretty good about using up highlighters. It's not that big of a deal to me. Obviously, for now, I think my collection size is alright. Once it still fits within like the space of my desk. There's no makeup in my drawer that I use. I have stuff in here that I use for like keepsakes because it's like presents that I can't let go of, but I wouldn't use in my collection anymore. But everything fits on top of my desk and in my very skinny drawers right here. Moving on to lip products. For lip gloss, I previously had 2 lip glosses and I currently have 7. I have a retention rate of 50% and a usage rate of 50%. So I used up 1 and I kept 1. And now seeing that lip gloss makes me realize how old it is, and that's a little bit disgusting to me. So I'm going to definitely work on panning it as soon as possible this year. For liquid lipsticks, I previously had 2, and earlier this year I said I'm done with liquid lipsticks. They are so uncomfortable. I hate the way they look on me. I just didn't like the way liquid lipstick looks on me. But guess what? I'm wearing a liquid lipstick right now. So I currently have 1 liquid lipstick. So I have a retention rate of 0% for liquid lipsticks, and I declutter both of them. So a 100% declutter rate. I really hope I don't end up decluttering this lipstick because it is quite nice, and the story behind it is I was at Sephora with a friend and I wanted to get something from the Sephora because I hadn't been in a while to a physical Sephora store, and my friend was getting something, so I was thinking in my head like, oh, I should get something because every time I go to Sephora with her I end up buying something and she ends up buying something, but obviously she plans it out and I don't. So we stumbled upon the liquid lipstick, and in my head I was like, okay, I'm going to pay the $22 for this liquid lipstick and just, you know, walk out with this. I ended up walking out with the Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronze and Glow as well, the mini, because I thought it was discontinued online. And the liquid lipstick ended up being half off and then an additional 20% off sale items, so I ended up paying less than $10 for this liquid lipstick, so I'm quite happy with that. So that's how I ended up with a liquid lipstick. You probably didn't need to hear that story, but I feel like every now and then it's interesting to hear little tidbits of, I guess, a YouTuber's life. Next, for lipsticks, like bullet lipsticks, or your more traditional lipsticks, I previously had 2. And now I have 7. I have a retention rate of 0%, and I decluttered the 2 I previously owned. And I decluttered them because they were blue and periwinkle, which is the Pantone color of the year, I know. But when I decluttered it, it was not announced yet. And so I do have 7 new lipsticks. I like them all. They are all nude colors, so they are much more wearable. And I hope I don't declutter any of these because I don't really have an excuse to declutter the ones I have other than they get too old or they expire. Actually, one of them is about to expire, so that would be the reason for decluttering it. So for lipsticks, I said last year that I didn't think lipsticks were worth it, and I was just going to buy lip liners in the future because I can go through lip liners just fine, but lipsticks, obviously there's a lot more product and it's harder to pan. But I have changed my mind on that because now I have nude lipsticks, or, you know, more reasonably colored lipsticks, and those are easier to go through than blue lipsticks or really strange colored lipsticks. Also, now I know that TerraCycle exists, I feel a lot better about recycling my makeup products, and so instead of constantly going out to buy a lip pencil, I know I can recycle my bullet lipsticks now, and that makes me feel a lot better. Moving on to lip liners, I previously had 4, I currently have 3, and I have a retention rate of 75% and a declutter rate of 25%. So I did get rid of my NYX green lip liner recently because it hurt. Like whenever I would put it on, the sides of the lip liner would cut my lip, and then wearing it was also extremely uncomfortable. Like right now I'm wearing a matte lipstick, but it's not that drying. So for NYX, I think I'm just going to stick to the glitter primer and their brows. So for lip liners, I think 3 is fine. I think that's pretty good. I have a red one, more chocolatey colored lip liner, and one that's more nude. That's perfectly fine. I think lip liners are a great way to try out funky colors. Moving on to powders, I previously had 5, I currently have 4, and I have a retention rate of 20% and a usage rate of 80%. So for me, I know this number is not accurate to my overall year use because I did declutter one powder because it was so awful. It was not a setting powder, it was actually like a loose foundation, kind of. It was not advertised as such, so I thought it was just a loose setting powder, but it oxidized so bad on me and it got everywhere, so that's why I didn't like it. But for all the powders that I had from 2020, at the end of 2020, except for the pressed one, all the loose powders I did use up, and I'm very good about using up loose powders. And the one pressed powder, I still have it. I've used it obviously, but I haven't used it up completely, and I need to use it up by the end of next year because it's expiring then. Moving on to eyeliners, I previously had 2 and I currently have 5. I have a retention rate of 50% and a declutter rate of 50%. So I had a liquid liner and a gel liner. I ended up decluttering the liquid liner. I gave it back to the same friend who gave it to me, and she is using the part that I didn't use. The liquid liner that I kept, it is kind of old. It is from 2019. I bought it from Korea when I was there. So it's at least a year and a half old, and I've had it open for a few months now. It's not very pigmented at all. I actually kind of don't like it because, well, compared to what I am used to now with my Persona Cosmetics eyeliner, I think I'm going to declutter it in the spring of this year. I'm still going to use it. I like to have as a backup liner, and I think in the spring it's nice to have when you're doing lighter looks. It will show up versus this darker look today. I have black and gold on. It's not going to show up. I think eyeliners, this is not a problem, having 5 or 10, as long as for me, as long as I'm using a product, it's fine if I have more than what seems comfortable, as long as I'm using it. Now getting into the juicy parts, which is my eyeshadow. So I'm going to start with singles. I previously had 2 singles. I currently have 15 singles. And by singles, I mean anything that's not in a palette. So even if it is in a quad, I'm going to count it as a single because I am just trying to simplify it for numbers' sake. And I have a retention rate of 0% and a declutter rate of 10%, which I think one of them I did open, the other one I am planning on donating, so if you're wondering. The open one was a pale yellow eyeshadow that just did not show up that well on my skin, and the other one was the Wet n Wild Brulee single shadow that I bought to use to set my lids after I put on eyeshadow primer, but I already have that shade multiple times, like so many times over in my other palettes that I didn't really need to buy a single. Maybe I will need to buy a single in the future, but for now, I don't really see myself planning on getting a single of that shade for a very long time. And lastly, we have palettes. So for palettes, I previously had 11 eyeshadow palettes, which at the time I already thought was kind of a lot. But does anyone want to take any guesses before I say the number of how much or how many eyeshadow palettes I currently have? Okay, time's up. I currently have 20 eyeshadow palettes. So I've almost doubled that amount. I have a retention rate of 64% and a declutter rate of 36% because let's be honest, who's going to use up a whole eyeshadow palette? For a lot of my eyeshadow palettes, I did use up quite a bit of them before I decided to declutter them, and I do still have a Huda palette, but I'm not including it in my collection because I'm not going to use it. I'm only keeping it because my brother gave it to me as a birthday present when he was in college, and I know those things cost an arm and a leg for a college student, so I'm going to keep it. And he always asks me about it, so I'm going to keep it until he is 60 and forgets, and then I will probably declutter it then because I will have lost it, I think, at that point. 20 palettes is quite a lot. I had a goal of 15 or less, and that's not happening. And I'm not going to declutter any of my eyeshadow palettes anytime soon. I mean, I technically decluttered one, but I still have it for memory's sake, but I'm not going to use it ever because the colors that are remaining in it are pretty ugly. I did pull out all the shades I liked and repress it into my other palettes so I could still use those. So technically the eyeshadow formula is still within my collection. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to stop buying makeup next year because every time I put myself on low buy, in my head I keep thinking, oh, I'm restricted, so I shouldn't, but it would feel really great to buy it. So I find that when I don't have any restrictions, I just tend to buy less stuff naturally, and I have to learn this lesson every single year because when I'm thinking about going on a low buy, usually because I'm inspired by someone who's doing a low buy, it backfires. So no more low buys. I know my palette spending has been excessive this year, but I like my collection, and hopefully I don't buy any more because this is a lot of stuff. Like, I have a lot of palettes, and I'm quite happy with the variety I have, and I definitely need to lower the amount of colorful shadows I buy because I am going to be switching jobs in February. So January is my last chance to wear super colorful makeup looks because I'm switching from private to public, and with public you cannot wear as crazy eyeshadows. I mean, sure, it is a weekend, so you technically have 104 days to wear colorful eyeshadows on the weekend. I'm a creature of habit. If I wear colorful eyeshadow on the weekday, I like to wear it several days in a row. So we'll see how that works out. And if I wear neutrals, I ended up wearing neutrals for quite a while. I think it's interesting to see my retention rates, my declutter rates, and my usage rates because, you know, you can look at numbers and it's cool and all, but I think knowing where your makeup goes is also important so that you can be more mindful of where your money is going, I guess, and what you're doing with your collection. So, for example, like, I could have 30 items in my collection next year, but I don't think it's reasonable. I don't think I could reasonably get there by panning only. I would have to declutter a lot of stuff, and to me, that decluttering to hit a certain goal is just waste. I was going to say stupid, which it is kind of stupid in my opinion. I think, you know, it's kind of like society. If you're happy, who gives a fuck what other people think, you know? So that's my take. I had a total of 82 products last year, and this year I have 93. So technically, I only went up 11 items, but when you go up in about 9 eyeshadow palettes, that's going to take up way more space than going up in 9 eyeliners. I went up in almost every single category this year, despite being really good about using up makeup in certain categories. So for next year, we'll see where it goes, because I didn't think I was going to buy more makeup after I did my everything I bought in a year, but I did buy more makeup. Probably because I was saying to myself, don't buy more makeup, you already did the video, but I bought more makeup, so yeah. Anyway, that's everything. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and Happy New Year. And I'll see you... When will I see you? I'll see you in March for the next makeup inventory. Thanks for watching. Bye!